started a series of seminars, the community response to the Gaza crisis. And this would be the second event. I would like to thank CIOGC for co-hosting with this civic engagement with ICW. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this event a blessed and beneficial gathering. There is no better way to start this event other than a Quran recitation from our own Sheikh Hassan Ali Qasi. It's right here, it's right. Oh, that's yours.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون فرحين بما آتاهم الله من فضله ويستبشرون بالذين لم يلحقوا بهم من خوفهم ألا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون يستبشرون بنعمة من الله وفضل وأن الله لا يضيع أجر المؤمنين الذين استجابوا لله والرسول من بعد ما أصابهم القرح للذين أحسنوا منهم واتقوا أجر عظيم
الذين قال لهم الناس إن الناس قد جمعوا لكم فاخشوهم فزادهم إيمانا وقالوا حسبنا الله وقالوا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل فانقلبوا بنعمة من الله وفضل لم يمسسهم سوء واتبعوا رضوان الله والله ذو فضل عظيم. إنما ذلكم الشيطان يخوف أولياءه إنما ذلكم الشيطان يخوف أولياءه فلا تخافوهم وخافون إن كنتم مؤمنين فلا تخافوهم وخافون إن كنتم مؤمنين. صدق الله العظيم.
And now let's welcome to the stage the chairman of the CIOGC, Dr. Abdul Ghani Hamada.
السلام عليكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Thank you very much, ICW, for hosting us. This is my second time here. First time I came during Ramadan in Taraweeh. If you remember, I was asking for your help and donation. Jazakumullah khair. So I would like to thank again ICW for hosting this event. And I also want to thank Rima Kamran from the Civic Coalition. They've been doing a great job, wonderful job during this crisis. And Brother Ahmad Rihab from CARE Chicago. Again, a lot of work, mashallah, that is unmatched, both of them. We and the council, we're an umbrella organization. They do the work and we get the credit. So thank you. So the council, as you know, is an umbrella organization with so many organizations, masajids, social organizations, social work, charity, etc. And we act as an umbrella organization, and we act on behalf of all of you. Our job is to coordinate and try to serve all of you in whatever capacity we can. Your success is our success. You are the organization. So any success any of the member organization has, we will claim it as our success, alhamdulillah. So our job is easy. Now, why are we doing these events? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested us with a crisis. And as you all know, this life is a test. If we think we're going to live through this life with no crises, with no calamities, then this will be Al-Jannah. And we're not there yet, but we'll get there, inshallah. Say Ameen. So this is a test, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to know how do we respond to these tests. So some of you may listen to the lectures and all the work that's being done and say, well, what difference does it make? Still people, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, are dying, children are dying. Am I calling this person, the congressman or whatever, is it going to make a difference? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't ask us for the results. It's in His hands. It's not in our hands. But He will ask us when we stand in front of Him in the hereafter, what did He do? Did you do what you can do? I can't go change regime. I can't go change the world order, but I can do whatever is in my hands. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask us in the hereafter. And this is the gist of this meeting here today, is to ask, what can we do? And if we are able to save one life, فَإِنْ وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. If we are able, in one phone call, in one act of kindness, save a life, then that's all we need. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of the rest. It's not up to us. We can't change things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do it. So this meeting tonight, inshallah, is about that. And I don't want to take too long, but this I thank again ICW. Inshallah, this community will continue to respond to the crisis in every community. And I thank all the speakers, Ahmed and Rima, and your new sheikh, mashallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Now we'd like to welcome to the stage, he's already on the stage, Sister Rima Kamran of Muslim Civic Coalition to discuss the community response from a civic point of view.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair for all being here today, and to my wonderful panelists here. My name is Rima Kamran. I work with the Muslim Civic Coalition. First, I want to thank CIOGC and ICW for bringing us here together to make sure that we as a community stand up and respond to the crisis in Gaza. The coalition is focused on civic work. We convene, collaborate, and amplify efforts towards civic justice for our communities. We're thinking about framing these issues that are affecting the world from the American perspective. But as a reminder, the Gaza crisis, it is important and vital that we center Palestinian voices. But we are here as Muslims to stand up with our Palestinian brothers and sisters. And as Dr. Hamadi reminded us, it is our responsibility to take action with them and for them. What does civic justice mean? I have a presentation. I'm a parent of 4 boys, so I want to make sure that I am able to impart this knowledge as best as I can to all of you present. And then I will ask my fellow panelists to, inshallah, build on what we're starting with. Civic justice means that we are able to use our voice, which would our voices, which is our heart and our head, along with data, to make sure that we can demand justice for those that may not be able to do it for themselves. And let us be very clear, the Palestinian community is asking for justice, and we are here to support them. Each of you here is a person, each of you has a story, each of you comes from a tradition of overcoming difficulties. But here we are together, we have been humanized by our stories. Unfortunately, at this time, the Palestinian community has been dehumanized. And it is important for us to make sure that we are reminding others that they are a community that is suffering and that we need to humanize them. But before we can even do that, you need to know the facts. We're in Illinois. I don't know if you knew, but Illinois is the most populated per capita population in the US of Muslim community. So we have the largest Muslim community per capita. We beat out Michigan, we beat out Texas, we beat out Florida, we beat out New Jersey. What does that mean? That means that we are a diverse community, but most likely you might have a neighbor who is Muslim. If you're in the general population, you might have a doctor who's Muslim. You might have an Uber driver, a student that you teach who is Muslim. But as a reminder, our country, we send $3.8 billion to Israel every year from our tax dollars, with $13 billion earmarked, or in the process of being earmarked, to provide additional aid in the next few months. Why do we care about that? In Illinois, $152 million is going to fund the war. And on your screen, you can see there's actually a great application that was put together by USCPR that talks about where military funding comes from. And you can see what else it could have funded. In Wheaton, almost $750,000 could have been used to fund many of the programs that your community could have used as well. So now that you are armed with some of the facts of how Muslims play a part in Illinois, how much of our tax dollars are actually going to fund this war, let's talk about how can we use our voice. As we are reminded by our faith, to change something, we need everyone. Dr. Hamadi reminded you, I'm sure the Sheikh will remind you, Ahmed will remind you, we need everyone to be on board for us to make a difference. And to do that, we are going to have to make sure that we're working together. Firstly, we need to make sure that we have a clear message. All of us have been speaking to each other on WhatsApp groups, we've been talking to our family and friends, but I think the most consensus that we've gotten on messaging for the Palestine-Israel issue is really clear. First, call for a ceasefire. Second, we do not want our tax dollars to directly fund the killing of thousands of civilians. The reason I bring up these talking points is you should be educated and ready to speak about this. And they're simple, right? Ahmed is going to tell us about discrimination and hate crimes are at an all-time high. Your community, my community, all our communities, our children are dealing with this on a regular basis. And again, as a reminder, all the statements that are being made by political leaders, by elected officials, we need to remind them that they need to humanize all sides, they need to be unbiased, and they need to be verified. We have seen just in our community what misinformation can do after the murder of little Wadea. The most important thing that we can do as a community is be ready to vote. I know at this time many of us are feeling, I don't know, I'm not going to be voting next year. Or why should I even vote? Who am I voting for? For someone who does not even want to call a ceasefire? Trust me, brothers and sisters, we're all feeling the same way. But the reality is, if we are not registered, we do not have a voice. You have the right to your vote. Let's talk about it later, about who we're going to vote for, what is going to be our strategy. But if you do not register, you do not have a voice. Our power comes from making sure that we show up. So I urge all of you to please check your registration. It takes a minute. You can go to vote.org, you can go to the CIOGC page, you can go to any pages of any of the organizations. It takes no more than 3 minutes for you to check if you're registered to vote. But at least you are putting your voice out there. And inshallah, as 2024 unfolds, we will talk about who we're going to vote for as a community. We can talk about what is the course of action that we will take to strategically make sure that politicians know that we are a powerhouse. And then lastly, I want to make sure that you are ready to take daily action. Every single day, we, subhanAllah, as Muslims, we pray 5 times a day, we do our adhkar, we do our dhikr, we remind ourselves to do our du'as. We are also obligated to do something when there is injustice being done. You need to stand up when there is injustice. And I'm going to ask all of you to think about this. How much time do you have to do something, anything? Do you have 5 minutes? Do you have 10 minutes? Do you have an hour? I'm pretty sure all of us have at least 5 minutes to give to this cause. You can sign up. There's a bit.ly up here. It's called Civic Daily Action. You're welcome to take a screenshot. You can sign up. We'll send you a reminder. Do something really quick. Sometimes we just need reminders. So this 5-minute, 10-minute, 1-hour thing came from, today I was talking to my college kids, and I said, if I asked you to do something for like 30 minutes, like can we go to a rally? And of course everyone rolled their eyes and said, no, I don't want to do that right now. Can we do it later? Or can we already went. There's this sense of hopelessness that is happening in communities. But if we think about it, taking 5 minutes out of your day is not that hard. So what can you do in 5 minutes? I'm just going to go through a roll of different things you can do. Copy and paste a message, spread the word. There are excellent links available that take no more than 5 minutes. Just copy it, paste it, and send it to everybody you know. On the WhatsApp, we're talking a lot about, oh, this is horrible, this is misinformation, but do something about it. Spread the word. Boycott. You can find at any point, anything, any category, you can find what you should be boycotting. Let me find my little thing here. If you want to have coffee, there is a website that tells you why you should not be buying Coffee Mate or perhaps Nespresso or Starbucks. Simple website. It just tells you what particular issues might be with that company. And you don't have, it's really hard. We live here. We can't boycott everything. Choose 3 things. Don't go to McDonald's. Or don't, order Domino's pizza. So here's a 5-minute action, a conscious action that you can take. There's a great app called 5 Calls. All of you can download it. It takes no more than 5 minutes to make 3 calls. You put your information in. It specifically tells you who to call. It gives you the script, and you can just call them. I live in Elmhurst. There's a little note. It brought up Sean Caston's number. It brought a little script that I could use. And this is how we're going to make a difference. It took no more than 5 minutes. I did it today, and the app goes through everything for you. Okay, what if you have 10 minutes? There's other actions that you can take. On a website, similar to what we're talking about, Care National, if you just go there, you can actually just send a letter. So this is, let me see, this is Jewish Voices for Peace website. All you need to do is put in your information. It'll send that email for you. Very easy, very quick. Here's the one from CARE. This is the CARE National one. Urge ceasefire. Everything has been done for you. It told me who I should send it to because I put in my information. And I'm going to personalize it. I'm going to make sure that I talk about, my Palestinian friend. I'm going to make sure that I speak about, the issues my children are facing when they speak up on campus. So it's a very easy way for you to take an action that takes 10 minutes. The other important one is engage, right? We have here a list of the voting record of all the House of Representatives and all the senators. What does it tell you? It's going to tell you exactly how they voted, why they voted, or not why they voted, but how they voted, and how much money do they get from AIPAC right here. You can look it up. It tells you what state. Let's look up someone from Illinois. So all the information is available to you, but it takes energy and time. Texting all these folks is going to take a little bit of time. There's automated tools, but you should be informed. We've had folks in our community who went to Sean Castan's office. Myself, along with sisters and a couple of brothers, went to Sean Castan's office to have a conversation with him. He was not there, but we spoke to his staff. But we are trying our best to make sure that we're engaging in every which way. If you have 30 plus minutes, right, go through the voting record that I just mentioned. Make sure that you're engaging with them. You're showing up at their office. You're having conversations. We had community members who did a sit-in, which is just saying, we're not going to, please listen to us. They went well prepared and they were ready to speak to him or his staff. Attend community gatherings. You're here today to learn. MashaAllah, may Allah bless you and bless your time for coming here today. But make sure after you learn, you advocate, you renew your intention, you pray for our communities, and then you support. And then finally, another action that is easy enough to do is holding media accountable. You see a ridiculous article, many of us have seen them, report it to our community leaders, or you yourself can take action. Write an op-ed. Call up the local newspaper and say, this is very inaccurate. This is misinformation. And I'm sure there's many other ways that you can be involved in 30 plus minutes. So please do sign up for action reminders if that's something that you can do, that you need help with. And inshallah, we're happy to send them to you. The last thing I will say about this is please support organizations doing this work. Subhanallah, we are a blessed community, and we're a community of privilege. But no matter what amount of support you can give, it's going to make an impact. And please also, along with your masajid, which should be very important support organizations like the Muslim Civic Coalition, the Council of Islamic Organizations of Greater Chicago, CIOGC, and CARE Chicago. These are the folks that are on the ground that are doing the work. They're trying to pool resources together. They're trying to organize communities together. They're trying to get information out there. And it's hard work. So please do make sure that you contribute. Because inshallah, we all think of this as amana, and it is in our best interest that we continue to support organizations that can build on this work. So I'll just leave it here. Inshallah, there's some important links that you can look at and see if there's something that is of value to you. Feel free to check out our website. And lastly, the last thing I will say is we have links available that you can attend a community briefing that we do every Wednesday at 6 p.m. And there's several links available here. This is just resources. You're welcome to check it out. It's on the screen, and if you click on one of the on the community briefing or the resources, you'll get more information. So Jazakallah khair, thank you for listening, and please, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, every minute that you can put towards this is something that you can help with.
Thank you, Sister Rima. Now I would like to welcome Brother Ahmed Wahab, the Executive Director of CARE Chicago, the man in the front lines, and he's going to give us his view in terms of civil rights.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I don't have a presentation. I don't have any prepared remarks. You're going to have to hear it off the cuff, as is normally the case. Probably 2,000 speeches so far in my career, 0 of which have been prepared or written, because I believe in conversation. We need the data, we need the slides, we need the conversations as well. First, I want to begin by thanking you for making time to be here with us this evening. You could have been somewhere else doing something else, but you're here tonight. That's the first step. Shows you care. Jazakumullah khair for that. I want to thank the CIOGC, Dr. Abdul Ghani Hamadi, and Executive Director Abdullah Mitchell, who are here with us this evening. And I want to thank, of course, the administration of the Islamic Center of Wheaton, Brother Khalid, Brother Ala, Sheikh Zaid, and everybody who's involved in this wonderful community organization. Just a word about CIOGC. Neither the coalition nor CARE Chicago are members, and yet CIOGC has us here on the podium while they sit in the audience, and that is a testament to the team playing that CIOGC is doing right now. And I want to sort of tip my hat off. That's what we want to see more of the community. The fact that we're all really one organization. These different names are different tools in the same toolbox that is the Muslim community. When they succeed, we succeed. When they succeed, we succeed, and vice versa. We work together as a team. We try to plug in holes and vacuums together as one community. And the masajid are very much a part of that sit under the umbrella of CIOGC. We meet today at a moment of crisis, as we all know, one that is global and local at the same time. And when I speak off the cuff, the risk is I'll be a little honest, sometimes brutally honest, and you're going to have to bear with me. But it's time for frank speak. So I'm going to begin with a question. And this is a question on my mind, so I'm going to have to make it on your minds as well. If this wasn't a crisis moment, and we had, let's say, a workshop, how to write a letter to the editor, and we approached the administration here at this masjid, would we have the audience that we have tonight? Let me ask you an honest question. Please respond honestly. How many of you have ever written a letter to the editor? I want you to look around. Look around. You have one person out of the entire community. This is not to shame the community, but this is to wake us up a little bit. You know how many, if I were in a synagogue right now, would raise their hands? It'd be the opposite of what we just saw. Maybe one person would not raise their hand. So when we wonder, why are we in the situation that we're in? Let's realize that it has something to do with our willpower and our current abilities and capacity. This isn't about new capacity, new abilities. We have what it takes. The question is the will, the focus, and the work. So let's begin with that. My dear brothers and sisters, I'll speak for my organization, but everything I say here probably is true for all the others. These organizations didn't build themselves. They didn't just sprout out from the ground. People in this community, including people here, volunteered, funded, worked, interned, were hired to build it up from the ground, to build something up. And today, as our phone rings off the hook, dealing with all sorts of problems you can't even imagine, from universities to hospitals to law firms, to meetings with elected officials, to media, to hate crimes on the street, to vandalism, hate incidents, to bullying, to intimidation, to harassment. All these cases, nonstop. This phone does not stop ringing from morning till night, or texts. If anybody in the community didn't realize the importance of having built a backbone that's a civil rights organization, now hopefully everybody does. And that we don't wait until crisis moments to realize the importance, but in the off-season, quote unquote, we are as focused, as diligent, and as supportive. Because it's in these moments that we build a capacity that allows us to better respond when these things inevitably happen. And even after this subsides, and inshallah it will, I hate to say it, but there'll be another time, another crisis, when we need to spring to action with just as much gusto and force. And the time to prepare is in between. We're trying to build more capacity now as we do the work, but it's hard to be in triage. We have doctors here, they understand. And to build up the strategies and the capacities that are needed. That's what you do in the off season. So I'm going to ask our communities, everywhere I go, to understand the bigger picture, to understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint, to not be the kind of community that has a knee-jerk reaction when the pressure's on, and when the pressure's off, we sit back and do the usual, whatever the usual is. Every community, every masjid is not just a place of worship. Worship is where it starts. Worship is the core of our foundation. From worship sprouts action. الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات. عملوا. Iman, we build it up through our worship, through our halaqas, through our Quran readings, etc. And then we think about how we can actualize, how we can implement what we've learned. We charge that battery, right? And then you put your phone away? No. And then you start to use it. So inshallah in the off season, let's be as focused, as hardworking, and to act as if they're breathing down our necks the way they are now. And right now, we're being clobbered. I'm going to be very frank with you. We're getting clobbered. When you see thousands of people being killed in cold blood, including children, and our elected officials and our media are not just quiet, that would be nice compared to what we have, but are cheerleading, in effect, for the murder, are actually supporting, giving moral cover for the murder, giving material support in funding and weapons for the murder of our families, of our children. And not just that, but then when many of us start to speak out, we are the ones called terrorists and terrorist sympathizers. We are the ones who are attacked. We are the ones whose rights are violated. I'll give you a few quick examples so you understand where we're at, and then we'll get into what we can do. But just today, this is just today and yesterday, to be frank, I have a situation at Northwestern University where in the law school there are 700 students. 20 students are Muslim, only 20. 3 wear the hijab, 3 are Palestinian. There's a Palestinian who wears the hijab, so there's an intersection between the 2 threes. And that small group of Muslims have been facing harassment, intimidation. They'll hold a silent protest. They'll come and they'll film them. They'll dox them. You know what that means? It means they put their names and addresses and information and where they interned and where they went to school online. And when they complain to the university, there's little that is done. Meanwhile, that same president of that university is sending statement after statement as if Northwestern is an outgrowth of the Israeli consulate in Chicago. And he will create an anti-Semitism task force because of students saying things like from the river to the sea. Meanwhile, Jewish students on campus will say all Palestinians must die. There's nothing that happens to these students, and there is no Islamophobia task force or anti-Palestinian racism type of task force. The president is non-responsive, dismissive. These students feel unsafe, and they've come to us, and now we're working on a strategy on what we can do to shake things up at Northwestern. We've done it at other universities. We've had successes. At DePaul, there is in the syllabus, they've included CARE in the anti-Semitism class. Mind you, CARE Chicago was founded by 3 alumni of DePaul University, myself included. And every civil rights director and attorney we've had has been a DePaul alumnus. Most of our interns come from DePaul. Our chairman emeritus, the great Professor Sharif Basuni, the late Sharif Basuni, who was at DePaul for 40 years, whose name outshone the university, locally and globally, a bigger name than the entire university combined. He was our chairman emeritus, and his desk at DePaul, the famous desk he had for 41 years where he worked on international human rights law, now is my desk and sits in my office. That is the connection we have with that university. And yet, there is in that university such a class where students feel unsafe because the organization that protects their rights is being smeared as anti-Semitic. We're working on that case as we speak. At CTU, the Catholic Theological Union, a professor is calling anybody who calls for peace a criminal. Imagine. Just calling for peace is now criminalized by a teacher who teaches people things. We've sent a letter to the president. The president is shocked. Sent back a very apologetic letter. We're going to meet with the president. So this is just on the university scene. On the hospital scenes, the American Gastroenterology, how would you say that? Gastroenterological, whatever, society, right? The Society of Gastroenterologists, basically. They have thousands of doctors in that college, in that group. And like everywhere else, they sent very unilateral, one-sided statements that support what's happening, that criticize the deaths in Israel, rightly so, and that give support, psychosocial support, charitable links for Jewish members who were affected by what happened, rightly so, but nothing to the Palestinians, nothing to the Muslims. So we worked with them to organize, and we had a letter where hundreds of Muslim doctors signed this strong letter that we crafted, and we sent to the board of that college. The college is basically a group, right? And we got a response back that apologized, acknowledged the error and the omission, and sent a new message to the entire college, all of the thousands of doctors, that included the Palestinian deaths and suffering and how horrible that is, and psychosocial support for the Palestinians and Muslims in that place, and charitable links, etc. So that was rectified. That was a success. And moreover, we took it further for positive reinforcement to say, let's now bring some Muslims to the board. Let's now do some more work on humanitarian aid, your doctors, medical aid. So this is how you transform things, through engagement, right? Through speaking out, through knowing who to talk to, through knowing how to craft your message, through not letting anything go. And we have to fight and duel in multiple directions. Bank of America, you will go to their portal, and right there, again, you'll have all these Israeli charitable links. You haven't asked for them. You're trying to bank. And it's right there on the portal. We worked with them, and now we have Islamic Relief and Gaza Relief and Children's Fund of Palestinian Children's, etc. Again, do nothing, get nothing. Try something, maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. Oftentimes you will. So the point here is, we are being clobbered. And sadly, the reason why is there is a small but powerful group of people, and it's not just of one religious background, but individuals who perhaps profit off of war, who benefit politically, but they have a lot of power, and they're using it shamelessly, voraciously, violently at this moment. And mind you, the irony is that we can't say this is America, because that group doesn't even represent America. Here's the funny part. 66% of Americans want a ceasefire. That's an overwhelming majority in political speak. 80% of Democrats want a ceasefire. Only one Democratic senator is calling for a ceasefire. 0 Republicans. So those who are elected to represent the American people are not even representing the American people on this issue. So who are they representing and why? Isn't that the question? And the funny part is, they don't even represent the majority, or at least a good chunk of Israel. Because even within Israel, you have the far-right wing coalition, which is now the governing power, and you have centrists, and you have leftists and progressives and liberals, and it's only that first group and their supporters, who are not necessarily a majority, but are very loud and powerful, who are running the show. And these so-called liberal and progressive politicians here are coalescing with a far-right coalition over there. How come? That doesn't even happen in America. You'll never find a left, progressive, liberal politician lending credence and power and coalescing with a far-right politician in America. But it happens globally across the ocean when it comes to the state of Israel. All these are valid questions. And the simple answer is that small but powerful elite does not represent the rank and file anywhere, but only their own interests. And what we're trying to do in terms of the larger narrative is to expose this truth. And for those who might claim it's anti-Semitic, our response is twofold. One, this group is not limited to people of the Jewish faith. There are many Christians, atheists, and some Muslims in that group. And secondly, they're going against the interests not just of Muslims and Americans, but Jews and Israelis at the same time, the rank and file. So when you start to split things apart, and we ourselves refuse to speak in black boxing and monolithizing, you begin to see a clearer picture and your words can carry weight. And we're saying these to the senators. We're saying this to the members of Congress. We're saying this to the media. It's an important message. But as a result of this current monopoly on power that's being abused, and it's about money, and it's about power. It's not about truth. It's not about right. It's about might. It is causing our communities to be sitting ducks. It is causing our communities to be sitting there vulnerable to hate, to abuse, our students, our doctors, our lawyers. We had a lawyer that was hired with a very nice salary to start on Monday. On a Sunday, she was called in, sat at the boardroom with all the top dogs in that firm, and questioned as if she was a criminal. Questioned as if she was part of a terrorist enterprise. Her crime, having been a student member of the SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine. And they asked her, and she had all the right answers, but they said, "You lie." And then they fired her before she could even start her job. And that's why they met on a Sunday, to make it look as if she was never hired. Except the problem was she had received an advance, so they can't skirt the law in that area. We'll be fighting back. We have her case. That's one of many examples in the law firms. And it goes on and on and on. Even non-Muslims, professors, students who speak out for Palestine are being intimidated and harassed and attacked. Average Jane, average Joes, it doesn't matter. It's brutal. It's vicious. But more and more, and this is the good news now, more and more Americans are catching on. More and more people are seeing what's happening. If the members of Congress and the Senate are too cowardly, and that's the only term I could use, to speak out, their staffers are not. And there were hundreds of them that organized and walked out and called for a ceasefire and said, our bosses don't represent us, on the steps of Capitol Hill. There have been journalists in the newsroom that have spoken out against their own editors and producers and said, what you're doing is wrong. There have been professors who have coalesced together and signed letters. And there have been, even in Hollywood, where 1,000 stars signed one of those letters of unconditional support for Israel, aka Netanyahu and the far-right coalition. There have been others, hundreds, that have come together, quite famous celebrities, who've put their names out boldly and said, not in our name, we don't stand with this. I would submit to you that if you were to watch TV where that small group of people have more weight than they do in real life, or listen to the politicians who don't represent their own constituents, you will get one image of the world. But if you were to realize the rank and file and the mainstream and where they're at, perhaps you'll have a sense of calm and a sense of relief and a sense of hope that in fact the world is not as glim and glum as it seems. The question now is, how can we coalesce and give power to our voices and these voices? And the key here is collaboration. The key here is us and them. It's not just us. We have to, my second point, the first is don't wait for crisis. Work hard in non-crisis. Prepare for crisis. The second is get out of the silo. Realize that we live in a country in which we're the minority. And we're going to need many other communities in order to break through this difficult wall that we're talking about. And it's in the interest of these other communities too. Because at the end of the day, if you're an average American and your tax dollars are being sent across the ocean, across continents, to support a genocidal, cultish leadership with cuckoo beliefs, killing innocent children in the name of this or that, and covering for it through media and through money to politicians, you as an average citizen are being hurt. Your tax dollars are being wasted. As a matter of fact, they're being spent to kill. Meanwhile, your potholes and your college, debts and your healthcare system and your educational system are all in dire need of improvement. And that message, if these politicians were honest, would be out there. But they're part of the cover-up, right? They keep the refrain, repeating the same old refrain that makes no sense. Eternal allies. Why? They've never explained that. Our eternal ally. How is anything eternal? What if they do something that's against our interests? Shouldn't it be a conditional alliance like every alliance in the world? If it's good for us, it's good. If it's bad for us, then it's bad. And even if it is eternal, shouldn't an ally give advice to another ally? Don't drink and drive. Or if you're my friend, you do whatever you want to do. Kill yourself. Drive drunk. A lot of things that don't make sense need to be called out as nonsensical. We need to be clear in our voice. We need to be brave. We need to be within reason and rationale. We need to be fact-based. We need to stay away from sensationalism, anger, emotion. We need to stay away from things that we don't believe in. Even in moments of stress and hopelessness and legitimate grievance, including anti-Semitism. At no point should any of us or any of our children fall into that disease. Any form of bigotry, and we're a bunch of Muslims here. This isn't a nice PR talking point. I'm not running for office. These are my genuinely held religious beliefs. Because if I'm not principled as a Muslim, then I'm weak. My strength and your strength come from our principles as Muslims, not as savvy PR professionals. We need that too, but that comes next. But the root of it all is our principles. And our principle is that we don't engage in bigotry. We don't believe in that. We don't believe that any one group of people is evil. It's individuals who make decisions. We don't believe in bigotry. That's what bigotry is. When you see a bunch of people who share a certain characteristic, so you attribute their evil to everyone who shares that characteristic. So we stay away from things like anti-Semitism, where we blame an entire group of people. Indeed, the facts bear out. There are many Jews who stand with us, many Jews who stand against this genocide, who've used their voices, who are in the street calling for justice, many even in Israel, but definitely here in the United States. At the same time, because we stand on principle, not PR talking points, we will not let this genuine sentiment be kidnapped and turned against us, where we fall into the trap that simply to criticize Israel is a form of anti-Semitism. Nice try. Nice try. We know what it is and what it isn't. We have minds. We're rational creatures. To criticize Zionism, a racist, supremacist ideology, insofar as its victims are concerned, at the very least, is not anti-Semitism and will never be. To criticize a foreign government, or even a domestic one, the decisions of certain men and women, can never be anti-Semitism. So we know what it is and what it isn't. And we need to know that. Because if we don't, others will brainwash us into believing this or that. So I say we stand on principles, make sure your children have these honest conversations with you. Let them know the red lines. Let them know the courage. The red lines is where we stop. Anything beyond that is courage. You say it just the way it is. We have our red lines. We don't need anybody else's. My dear brothers and sisters, it's in moments of crisis, it's under pressure that coal becomes diamond. I've never questioned in these 14, 16-hour workdays fate. Why? We know why. On an individual calamity basis, or a community or a global calamity basis, we know why. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed it to happen. No one can will without the will of God. There is no actual power other than the power of God. No one else has power. It's an illusion. No army, no government, no rich group of people, no poor group of people. Not even us. Power is Allah's alone. Allah delegates in His wisdom powers to human beings, and they can't accomplish anything without His will. When might is given, the test is, what will you do with this might? That is the only question there. And if you abuse your power, you failed your test, even if you think you've won because you're so powerful and you've killed a few people or many people. And if you're the one who's been tested with a lack of so-called power, your test is in your resilience, your patience, you're sticking to principles and truths even under pressure and not falling off and returning hate with hate and ignorance with ignorance and darkness with darkness, just as our Prophet ﷺ was tested. And he never lost his direction, even during injustice, moments of injustice, years of injustice. We also stick to our principles and fight on our principles till we win or die. And for those of us here who are on neither end of this power struggle, but have our own issues to deal with, the question is, well, what do you have? What have you been given? You've been given liberty to a large degree versus people in Gaza for sure. Life, liberty. You've been given talents, money, skills, education, knowledge, community. What are we going to do in this moment of crisis is the only question before us. Not why it should happen or why did it happen or how we can actually change it. It's how we can try. Allah changes. If Allah wills, in a second, less than that, everything changes. The real test is, what are you going to do? And that's it. And if we do our best in intention, in strategy, our best, ihsan, right? It's not just checking a box. It's with Allah in mind and heart. He's the audience we address, no other audience. And we work hard and smart as we can, given what we've been given. We have passed the test. We are victorious, period. Regardless of what you think is happening in the world or what outcome you deem success or failure. That's not for you and me to decide. It's only what we do in this test that we are given. And the answer to that is our very best. That's what we're talking about tonight. And Sister Rima spoke about many concrete steps that we can take. I want to add to it. If you see something that you shake your head about, that you don't like, ask yourself, can I make a step? Can I do something about that thing? You're watching something on TV. You can either say, oh my God, this is so unjust. This is so untrue. Or there's erasure, there's omission here. Don't say it to yourself. Say it to someone who works there. Let's become this engaged community. Do it once a week. You can't do it every day. Do it once a month. I'll be happy with that. Make it a condition upon yourself. And ask yourself as you go to bed, was there something I didn't like that I did nothing about, or did I at least do something about it? Learn to write a letter to the editor. When you go home, look up the information. It's right there. It's even on our website. And submit a letter, unprovoked. You don't have to read something that you don't like. They publish letters every day. And tell a story. Fill the vacuum. Report what's not being reported in your best language. Do that at least once a month. If you can do it once a week, then great. How many have ever called their elected officials? Okay, there's more than writing letters to the editor. But we need to have a lot more. I'll judge about maybe 10, 15%. I'd like to see 75. Find out who your elected official is. Find out how you can contact them, what the talking points are. We have organizations that have done the legwork in providing that information. Again, go to care.com and you'll find that information, even the language of the letter. Submit that. Check that box off for yourself. Say, I've done that. Do it to every representative you have, local, federal. tell your story. If we don't tell our own story, nobody else's. Statistics are important, but the human story is the most important because, as we've said many times, at the root of all of this, the reason why they are succeeding to the degree that they are is because of their tactics and strategies of dehumanizing Muslims and Palestinians. The more they dehumanize, the easier it is to legislate laws and to create policies and to have media coverage and political statements and corporate statements that are unjust and serve only one side, because the other side is they're less than human. They're squatting terrorists. They put up their own children to die just for attention. Human shields. They're human animals. They're not worthy. And I received a letter yesterday. And I won't get into the details of the letter because there's probably every other word in that letter cannot be mentioned in a mosque. It's a violent and bloody letter. But it concluded with a threat to kill my wife, castrate my sons, and said, "You're a dead man, Ahmed." And that letter was sent to my office, and it's easy to find my address online. And we're going to do what we can. We've reported it to the FBI, to the police, and we'll work on more security, for my family, and et cetera. But this is terror. They call us terrorists. This is terrorizing. This is meant to silence and to instill fear. It's meant to coerce. We learn in America, we're told that this is a free country, freedom of speech, and if you don't like someone's speech, including Islamophobic speech, we've been told many, many times the only response to that is to have more speech, is to persuade, is to say something else. But the moment that certain people feel threatened, suddenly these rules are thrown out of the window, and it's actual terrorism. It's actual punitive measures. The ACLU said it very clearly. In America, our tradition of freedom of speech means, at universities, for example, that where there is disagreement and dissent, the way forward is persuasion, not punishment. But all we're seeing is punishment, is intimidation, harassment, death threats, vile ones, to silence us. And what are our voices being used for? Calling for human rights, calling for basic human decency. And that's what we get from the other side. So we're clear on where we stand in history. We're clear on where we stand even in the fight for the soul of America. And don't be ashamed or shy or meek in claiming that you represent the soul and the spirit of America. This isn't some false sense of patriotism. But if we have chosen to live in this country, and if we agree that despite the many, many sins and many, many historical wrongs that have been committed in this country against the native population of Native Americans, against African Americans, globally in wars that should never have happened, etc. If despite that we believe there are rays of hope and goodness in this country, and that's why we're here, I presume, including the freedoms, including the rights, including the justice, etc., relative to many other countries, then we need to completely embrace that we will represent the best of that. That's what Muslims do when they move somewhere. They challenge what's wrong, they reinforce and improve what's good. So as I close in the final couple of minutes, I want us to claim that space. Let your children understand that this is what we're about. Let other Americans, this is the language, you will not be able to convey that unless you believe it. I want you to believe it. We are the most patriotic citizens of this country because we're fighting not just for human rights, but for freedom. Freedom of expression, assembly, conscience. Even when the other side offends me, I've never called for them to be punished or shut down. I will have a rhetorical, clear rebuttal of what they're saying, because I understand this is a country of pluralism, a multitude. There are red lines, hate speech, death threats, and we can all agree on that, but that's not what they're responding to. They want to shut down our peaceful advocacy just because we're Muslim. just because we're Arab, just because we're South Asian, just because we're Palestinian. So claim that space, and we fight back, and these letters are not going to silence us. We're going to speak ever louder. We'll take our precaution, tie our camel, pray to Allah, but we're going to speak even louder. And this is not the first letter, it won't be the last. But Allah is the protector. My dear brothers and sisters, keep your heads up, keep your chin up. You're believers in Allah, you're mu'minun. And let's work hard, let's work together. Let's make change. Let's write those letters, call these politicians, tell these stories, talk to neighbors if you can, talk to coworkers, talk to your children, make sure they're safe in school, make sure their voices are clear. Follow the organizations. We will give you regular details on what's going on and what you can do with us. We're together at this, right? The workers and the supporters is the organization. It's not just the staff. And finally, never lose iman or trust in Allah, the real power in all of this. If we're on the right side of Allah, we will be victorious, inshallah. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I want to take a moment to remind you about tomorrow's protest in downtown. I'd like everybody to participate. Buses will be provided. Tomorrow we'll be leaving here at 12 o'clock. So if you can show up about 11:30, 12, quarter to 12 will be great. Now let's look at it from a religious point of view. Would like to welcome our brother Sheikh Zaid Abdul Rahim of ICW to talk about it from a spiritual point of view.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So you have been sitting for a while now. Please stand up and breathe. Stand up, stand up. Come on, let's go. Refresh. Stand up. Refresh yourself. Breathe. Yes. Okay, have a seat. Jazakallah khair for coming and showing up. I'm so excited. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa wala. Here is point one, which both speakers eloquently touch on. We are in a growth moment. But here is the first law of growth. Very important. If you learn this law, your life will change right now. You guys ready? Growth is intentional. The only automatic growth is aging. You don't need to do anything to age and become older. But any other growth is intentional, which means we need to have guys like Brother Ahmed and Sister Rima, and you guys. That's how we make a difference. Growth has to be prepared, planned. The word is intentional. We go to school, we study, read books, magazines. We go back to the Holy Book of Allah, the Holy Quran, and read the Sunnah because we want to grow. And why do we want to grow? Because at the end of the day, we would like to contribute. The more you grow, the better you can contribute to yourself, to your family, and to your community. Brother Ahmed touched a little bit on the why. I'm an educator, an imam. So I get questions from the youth. I get questions from families who have families in Gaza. I myself am Palestinian. So I have family in the West Bank. I have family in Jerusalem. My aunt, her grandchild was killed by the Israeli forces 2 months ago. And yet, they are claiming for his body. They could not get the body yet. So a lot of people are asking the why question. I know most of you are clear on it. I just want to touch on it quickly from an Islamic point of view. I have had questions from young brothers and sisters asking Sheikh Zaid, is this a punishment? Is Allah punishing us? Did we do anything wrong? Another question that I got, is this the beginning or the end? Another question that I usually and frequently get, is our dua and qunut or nazila enough? Or should we do something else? Well, we all know that we need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time. However, we need to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more and more during the times of crisis. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us ask for guidance in every rak'ah in our salah. We recite, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Guide us to and through the straight path. Brothers and sisters, young and elders, as a community, our response to the Gaza crisis comes from unwavering belief and firm, clear values. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala narrated that prophets were murdered and killed. These are prophets, the most righteous people among humanity, aided by Allah, aided by the guidance of Allah, beautiful people, yet they were martyred. In the seerah, we read the story of Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu. The Prophet gave him the title, the Lion of Allah. And yet, his body was mutilated. Ja'far, the cousin of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who represented Muslims in front of An-Najashi, in the battle of Mu'tah, lost both of his hands before he was martyred. This has been the reality of many people who paid high prices standing up firmly for justice, Muslims and non-Muslims alike. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and in Gaza itself, Rachel Corrie, who was trying to stop an Israeli bulldozer to demolish a Palestinian home. Algeria, an Arab and Muslim country that struggled against the French occupation, is referred to as the country of 1.5 million martyrs. Now our Shaykh, mashallah, he recited the ayah from Surah Al-Imran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't you ever think that the martyrs are dead. They are alive with Allah. But I would like to bring an important word in that ayat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِالَّذِينَ لَمْ يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ, which could be translated as, and they receive the good news about the people that did not follow them yet. Now the scholars of tafsir tell us that the martyrs are given the good news from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about those people that will come after them. And this good news is two parts. Either that they will be martyrs as well, or they will have victory. Yastabshiruna is a present tense verb. Allah gives them the good news. So they are aware. And they are happy with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yastabshiruna, waiting for the good news. What good news? Either martyrdom or victory for those who will follow them. As to the war criminals, we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ غَافِلًا عَمَّا يَعْمَلُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Don't you ever think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unaware? Allah knows everything before it happens. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing us. He will bring everyone to judgment. Now, I would like to close quickly because we would like to leave some time for question and answer. Here is the most important point in my speech. in Surah Al-Fatih, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the retaking of Mecca. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba tried to make pilgrimage, but they were rejected. And they were put under unfair conditions in Sulh al-Hudaybiyah. On the way back, Allah reveals this surah. The last ayah of this surah is very, very important. Extremely important. This is the most important point in my speech. Please listen carefully. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Muhammadur Rasulullah. Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ. And those with him are firm and mighty with the combatant disbelievers in the battlefield. رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُمْ. They have mercy among themselves, the followers of Muhammad. You know, let me inject one point here. Many Muslims are highly successful as individuals, but we have to become successful collectively, working together. Wallahi, Muslims are so successful. Some organizations by themselves, they are very successful. Some Muslims are highly successful, but we want to start talking about the collective success, which Brother Ahmed stressed and Sister Rima as well. Collective success. This is our goal. This is our aim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Muhammad and his companions. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives two examples of the companions of Muhammad who represent us, the Ummah. One example in the Torah, the book of the Jews, and one example in the Gospel, the book of the Christians, Al-Injil. And please focus with me. This is extremely important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, سِيمَاهُمْ فِي وُجُوهِهِمْ مِنْ أَثَرِ السُّجُودِ. That the followers of Muhammad, their signs of the light of faith could be observed in their faces from their prostration and ibadah. ذَلِكَ مَثَلُهُمْ فِي التَّوْرَةِ. This is their example, our example in the Torah, the book of the Jews. But our example in the Gospel, in the Injil, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, like zara', like plants, farming, seeds, and farmers. The question is, why? Our example is as worshippers, those who prostrate to Allah, make ibadah, sujood, ruku'. In the book of the Jews, because many Jewish people are so materialistic, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought the complementary picture. So that's us. We have to make dua. We have to prostrate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to make qiyamul layl. We have to keep asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We could also fast together. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will alleviate the situation in Gaza. But now let's go to the other part. Our example in the gospel. In the book of the Christians, our example is like plants, seeds, and farmers. Why? Because many Christians are monks. Monasticism. They go to the temple and they don't work. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, the ummah of Muhammad is highly working, highly productive. So that's us. Connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we are highly organized, highly productive. We plan and we want to make the difference. So this is the lesson. We need both. Our dua and connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is important. At the same time, we have to plan. We have to put the seed and we have to work hard. Let me conclude by saying the following. Rasulullah ﷺ passed by the family of Yasir. Yasir, his wife Sumayya, by the way, sisters, the first martyr in Islam was a lady. The first martyr on land was a lady, and the first martyr on the sea was a lady, Haram bint Malhan radiallahu ta'ala anha. So, mashallah, an honor for the sisters. Rasulullah passed by the family of Yasir and said, Sabran ala Yasir fa inna maw'idakumul jannah. Patience, patience, family of Yasir. Your future with Allah is Jannah. I'm promising you Jannah. Now, Yasir, the husband, and his wife passed away. They did not see the victory. But who saw the victory? Their son, Ammar, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So whatever we build now, we build for ourselves, but more importantly for the future. You know the people that Brother Ahmed was talking about? They have been working for more than 150 years. So we need to plan for the future. And here it is. Rasulullah ﷺ says, Al-mu'minu al-qawiyyu khayrun min al-mu'min al-da'if wa fi kullin khayr. He says the strong Muslim, Rasulullah ﷺ says in the hadith, the strong Muslim is more beloved to Allah and is better than the weaker Muslim. Strong in what? In Iman, in their planning, in their effort, in everything and every aspect of our life. Allah loves the stronger Muslim. A century from now, people are going to read about what is going on in Gaza today. You know, in the books of history, people will read about Gazans, the Palestinians, the criminals of war, but also they are going to read about us. When it comes to history, there are three types of people. Those who make history, those who watch it, and those who will read about it. The brothers and sisters in Gaza and Palestine, they are making history now. Aren't they? Wallahi, they are making big history. They are making a special and unique and golden page in the books of history that people read about. Those who are taking action to support the Palestinian cause preached by all religions, human rights, and the international law are also making history. And we hope that this will be all of us. But brothers and sisters, please, let's not be among those who renounced their humanity and their responsibility by just watching history. Brother Ahmed, back to you. Brother Khalid, back to you.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to have a segment of question and answer, and we'll go with 2 questions per gender.
Assalamu alaikum. No question, one comment. Ahmed referred to we still need to make ready, and that's another role the council is assuming. We are reinstituting our security training, so all of our member masjids will be prepared. This will be led by the security director. His name is Said Qadri. He's a sergeant with the Chicago Police Department, as well as having received his master's in security risk management. So inshallah, please take note. We need you to be an active participant in this effort. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. I was wondering if it's legal for organizations like the civil organizations to get the citizens' consent, and based on that, send on their behalf letters and emails to the representative, because you could automate that if it's legal, like from all the citizens, and send these messages like daily or frequently. So, for example, can you take the three of us here sign a consent and give it to you so you can, on our behalf, send, and this can be automated, can send to the representative daily or weekly on our behalf to all the representatives. This can be automated.
Yeah, I mean, these letters are not, they're not legal communication. There's nothing legal or illegal about it. It's whether it's effective or not. You know what I'm saying? It's not a legal thing. Yeah, so in terms of being effective, the elected officials like to hear from constituents. That's why I say find out who your local representative is. It's where you live. It's based on where you live. You know, because Care Chicago, the coalition, CIOGC, we interact with many elected officials on a leadership basis as leaders of the community. When we have these meetings, when we have these letters, when we have these emails, when we have these calls, we're doing what you just asked now. We claim you already. We claim that we speak for you. But what we also need is for the citizens, the constituents themselves, to directly bring their voices to their elected officials based on their zip code, where they live, so that they can know that there is a groundswell, that these things matter. You know, don't judge it by whether they change their position. Many people have come to me and said, we've been sending letters, my friends have been sending letters, they're still not calling for a ceasefire. Well, but you've influenced how they think about things. And even if they're not calling for a ceasefire, they're feeling maybe guilty about it or worried about it, worried about the response. These things add up. Change won't happen overnight, like the Imam Zaid mentioned. They can happen in a year, 2 years, 5, 10. But keep knocking on that door until it opens, it will. So we need every little drop to create that river, that ocean.
And it does make a difference. I'll give you a really simple example. We went to Sean Casten's office, we had prepared remarks, all these things. One of his folks in his office, a wonderful woman called Laura, started to cry, and we find out that her sister's child went to school with Wadea, or it was in the same school district. And we find out that now she is advocating with her family member to go to Washington, make sure that the story from the constituents are heard at that level. Now, on the other hand, suddenly we are finding that there's blockades to getting to speak to our Congress people, et cetera, but now we have an in. She's seen us. She understands what we stand for. We've informed her, and we continue to speak to her, and we've made an ally. Now, it doesn't mean, like Ahmed said, something is going to change, but again, it's about making sure that they're informed. We're trying to humanize this actual issue, right? It's just not, oh, 10 people showed up. But if you continue to show up, and you, I'm sure, are seeing this all over online, the aides, the community members are telling you that the phones are ringing off the hook. And every day, you're right, brother, we have to automate, we have to think strategically. When the phones weren't going through, guess what? Community members started faxing stuff. You gotta just think outside the box. But the point is to get your voice heard, and for them to see the wave of support for this issue.
And also, as I said before, it is extremely important that we do the exercise so we can grow. If we don't do it and practice it, we are not going to grow as a community. So the essential point here that we have to grow, and we have to keep, that momentum. Yeah. Just like, a child who goes to school, they start practicing and practicing. But this growth is essential.
Right. You can't tell someone to go to the gym for you. That's what the Imam is saying. But just two last quick points on this. One is, that is the point, by the way. Like, doing it is the point, because again, the result is with Allah. Yeah. So the action is with us, and once you do the action, you've passed the test, khalas. And the second point is, I said there was one senator who's calling for a ceasefire out of 100. You know which one? You know which state? Our senator. Our senator. Out of the entire country, it's our senator. It's the senator that they've engaged, CIGC, coalition is engaged, CIG is engaged, we've engaged, he's signed law in our office, our physical office, spoken on our podium at the banquet. This community has been before him in the thousands. They've called him. So this does work. And we need more of that, inshallah.
Oh. Assalamu alaikum. So, is it legally and morally correct to fire individuals like managers firing like their employees due to just basically saying free Palestine or like supporting Palestine? Because many people, right, that are working and they support Israel. I mean, not support Israel, support Palestine, correct? And they're somehow getting fired. Is that correct? Is that correct? Is it like legal for them to fire individuals like that, or?
The simple answer and direct answer to that question is no. It's illegal to fire someone on that basis. Where there's wiggle room is for some private employers where they might claim that being at certain events or holding certain views is bad for their brand because they cater to a certain population. It's more hairy there, but there's still wiggle room for us as far as the law. But the blanket firing of someone who simply says free Palestine or has a view or stands up for their conscience is almost always going to be a place where we can bring a lawsuit, or a moment where we can bring a lawsuit.
Assalamu alaikum. Sorry. First of all, thank you for this session. It's very helpful. One thing I would suggest is maybe have a like a media workshop training kind of session. I think a lot of people struggle with actually telling our story. Like, what does it mean? You know, like even writing letters, expressing that emotion, telling the story of kids, of families. And there's a variety of ways of doing, obviously writing letters, but also, you know, creating videos, Instagram reels, things like that. I think we have talent in our community, but maybe kind of coming together and having like a day or a half day session of like how to actually tell, curate, and demonstrate the story would be helpful. And I was just thinking, you know, we have these things for kids now where, you know, kids, you know, small kids writing letters to send to congressmen, but I think we also need this for adults. Because I don't think we, you know, the overload of information and emotion sort of makes it really hard to sort of communicate. So I would just suggest that.
I agree 100%. We provide such a workshop. If we come to your community, make sure you attend it. I'm sure the coalition and CIGC can also provide trainings of different sorts. So, but we need the engagement in the off season and post-crisis for this to work in the long term.
Yes, subhanAllah, this is something that we were actually planning to do on CIOGC, to have a media training session or sessions for next year. So it's coming now actually to be more important, but that was in the plan. The other thing I want to mention is quickly, you know, Thanksgiving is coming, and we have families get together and they have meals, and some people may feel guilty about that. So alhamdulillah, we have a plan. Just follow us on social media for the community to do action every day, starting Wednesday, Thursday, Black Friday, you know, Giving Tuesday. There are some actions that everyone can do on a daily basis, and the kids, so you don't really feel that you're out of touch. And these actions, again, they're small. They may benefit us more than others, but it does make a difference for us and our family, our kids. So just follow up on social media.
So just have a question here, especially for individuals as Muslims, that we sometimes feel like we are afraid to raise our voices. And to follow up to the point that someone can be fired, even it's illegal, but it can happen, right? So probably we feel that if we raise our voices, we get fired or get in trouble, something like that. How we feel confidence that we can do that without not anything happen, but we can be protected to do it.
So this is such an important question because, quite frankly, from where I'm sitting, it's been very difficult because of the palpable fear in our community. We have a record number of cases reported to us in the history of CARE, including post 9/11. Despite that, it is my belief that only 1 in 10 are reporting what is happening. And even then, those who report to us, a good chunk of them, a decent amount, will ask us not to continue with the case, not to proceed, out of certain fear of retribution or retaliation. So it's important that we get the message out to the community. We're only as strong as our desire, our will, our resolve to stand up for our rights. Our rights are only as strong as our ability to fight for them. Otherwise, they're gone. We relinquish them. Nobody takes them away. We give them up. So it's very important to know the difference between overstepping a boundary where you're in actual legal trouble and being within the bounds of the law and reason where you are protected. And the difference is hate speech or violating company policy. Every employee has an employee manual. They can know the answer to the second question. And hate speech is a common sense thing. Short of that, you have every right to speak your conscience and not be retaliated against or face retribution. And if you were, we would have grounds to sue on your behalf in terms of unlawful termination. And we have in the past. We just won a case for a police officer that we haven't announced yet, who was terminated for standing up for his beliefs and who was harassed and bullied by his fellow police officers. And we won him $480,000, alhamdulillah. And we forced the police department to apologize and to change his record from being fired to resigning so that now he gets all the pensions and everything else. So stand for your beliefs.
Thank you very much, everyone. I just want to remind everyone, most of the questions went around the letters to your representatives. We send out many times in the group link where it has all the letters pre-typed. All you have to do is put your name and hit send. So that's a lot easy. We will post it again. If you are not on ICW group, you can reach any of us, we'll add you. Again, we'll remind you about the buses tomorrow for the protest in downtown. Every one of you matters, every one of you make a difference. Any question on the ladies' side, sisters? Just to be fair, okay. Then, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't have a question. More of a comment, and I'm sure that Brother Dihab and our sister have thought about this, but with the Mass ISNA convention coming up in December, I just think that you have a captured audience there, and if maybe there's some consideration with CIOGC and just the community, just to think about the psychosocial elements that have been impacting our community here locally in the US, and also to kind of maybe consider speaking about this or generating some workshops for that event and coordinating with them. I just think it's a captured audience. You have people from all over the country, great attendance there, and just something to think about. I think it would be extremely beneficial, as this was tonight.
Inshallah. I'd like to thank all of the, go ahead.
I just want to acknowledge that point. It's a very good point, and I also want to put out there, because again, we're transparent, we're one community. I've never, at least not recently, in many years, gotten an invitation to speak at Mass ICNA, despite it being down the street. So that's a question for them. They'll bring foreign leaders from across the world to speak, or their family members, but not their local, in the trenches type of servants, let's say, not leaders. We're all one community, right? This is not criticism, but it's a fact. I don't know if CIGC is part of the steering committee. You are with ISNA convention. Are you with Mass ICNA?
We're now, actually, we have several meetings with them, inshallah. We're trying to coordinate where we're going to be.
Okay, I mean, it's, you have a session.
We have a session, but it's about civic engagement. So absolutely, I think this is the time for us to come together and say this is how we take action, collective action, just like we are doing here. So I think there's great opportunity, and thank you for the reminder.
You're absolutely correct. We need to do it there. And it doesn't have to be me. Just our people need to be there talking about these things.
Yeah.
It is being discussed right now. All right, inshallah, there will be something related to that in terms of that as well. The other thing I wanted to indicate, through the United States Council of Muslim Organizations, they're having we had a convening of all the regional councils, like the CIOGC, the Southern California, New York, Southern Florida, and now there's a discussion how we can create a national day of solidarity and taking some action on behalf of, in response to Gaza. Inshallah, that's coming. So, as he said, we're working, and we'll try to get this information to you as soon as we can. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Assalamu alaikum. Just two quick comments. One, and the request to our organizations, AMP, CARE, and CIOGC, all three of them. One is for the community that what we, as a strategy, since we are talking about the plan and the strategy and all that, I think one thing that we all have to do is, at least on our level, that we, as we make one kid as Hafiz, that's kind of trend here, right? And I did the same. We really have to go and make one of the kid go take the major of psychology or being a lawyer. That is basically not just the engineers and the doctors. What we are doing is making engineers and doctors as that they're gonna go and then start making money. There is a lot of other fields that we should really go out and have our kids to take those majors, number one. And I would like to have our organization also to put that as stress and maybe have a kind of scholarship program for those. So combine together to have a scholarship, since we are talking about 25 years. So one kid, if we born today, gonna go and in 25 years become a lawyer. With that scholarship, obviously gonna make a big difference, right? So that's one strategy that we should look into. The second thing is about the reading. Our kids are not reading, for sure, including my kids. I go to the plane, I'm flying. Our people and myself, we are watching videos, we are watching TVs, we are watching the channels, and there are, most of the Americans, they are readers. They are reading books. We're not readers. We literally don't read. So we have to change ourselves. How we're gonna go about it, that would bring a lot of change in future, inshallah, in 20, 25 years. That's what we should plan for. Jazakumullah khair.
I just wanted to comment on that. Thank you so much, brother. Again, brothers and sisters, this is a community effort, so please talk about this at your dinner table. I know our kids are young. I know some of us want to protect them, inshallah, from this horrific reality that is happening. But I think it's really important, as our Sheikh told us, as Ahmed told you, this is really happening, and it is all our responsibility to think about this as a moment of growth. There are several resources that are available. You don't have to think of language that might be child-friendly or might be too graphic for children. If you look, I'm going to share with Brother Khalid, a resource document. You're welcome to look in it. Noor Kids has excellent programming, as do Goodreads, etc., that talk specifically about this issue. And there are psychologists that have been consulted, educators, etc. So this is not just coming from lay people, this is coming from experts in the field on how to talk to your children, young and young adults, as well as those who are coming into adulthood, about what was the conflict, what is the conflict, and what is something that we can, as Muslims, from a Muslim perspective, do together.
I just want to say that you really hit the nail on the head, brother, with that comment. Brother in the back there. Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head with that comment. It is about how we bring up our children and our youth. And it's important how we recenter and reframe and reform our so-called spiritual spaces. We need to continue with the hifz of the Quran and understanding the words, the meaning of the Quran, and of course, implementing the actions in it, right? The commandments. But in addition to that, as part of our spiritual space, not somewhere else, as part of our faith building, we need to know about our world, we need to build confidence in our children, we need to help them find and put out their voices, to be influential leaders in their spaces from a young age. I have 3 sons, These are the things I consider my Muslim responsibility to give them, just as much as Hifd al-Quran, and alhamdulillah, at 9 and 7 years old, they're almost done reading the entire Quran on their own. But these things are as Islamic. And I just want to conclude that point by saying, I'm actually really glad that you have Imam Zayd in this community now, because a bit of trivia, I've known this man since I was in college, right? Many, many, many years ago. And his beard was all black, his hair was all black, he was still a young man. He was doing his PhD when I was in college. And he was always a voice of that nature that understands the full gamut of what spirituality means. And it's funny you mentioned psychology. You know, I chose psychology as my major just because of the work I wanted to do in the community. I never worked as a psychologist or a therapist or anything like that, but these fields do help open up history, geography. These are absolute criteria that we have to have for our children to learn about.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I want to thank all the speakers. I think all of you guys did an excellent job. It was a very informative program tonight. Jazakallah for that. I want to talk about media, so we didn't touch base much on the media. Media plays, such a significant role in all the rhetoric what's going around. We spoke about the leadership, the politicians, and how do we write, letters and all that. But there is so much bad information, wrong information, incorrect information going on every, US media right now, unless you watch Al Jazeera, whether you turn on to CNN or ABC News or whatnot. So how do we challenge? The question is, how do we, similarly like how we are writing letters to politicians, is there a way to challenge the any host of specific program that we are watching or any specific news channel? Can we write them letters? How do we get their contact information so we send them the right information, or what we dislike about, or if there could be more balance in their reporting?
Yes, there is. I mean, letters to the editor, as far as papers are concerned, emails to producers, as far as television is concerned, or calling the news desks. Those are the three ways you can absolutely make a difference. If more and more Muslims were engaged, again, the difference between us and other communities, without naming any other community, is how we let things go and how others don't let a thing go. If they don't like it, they do something about it. And it's funny because it's our faith that says, if you see something wrong, then write it with your hand. If not, then with your tongue. If not, then with your heart. That's the weakest of faith. So let's be strong, as the Imam mentioned. Allah loves the strong Muslim with the hand is first, which means call, email, write, whatever it is. Yes, you can.
And just to add to that, brother, let's be truthful, okay? We as a community also sometimes spread this misinformation, right? You see something on WhatsApp, Auntie, XYZ sent it to you. We have to check our sources. There is information that is just out there that is atrocious, that is untrue, and that causes, again, more harm than anything else. So please check your sources when you're forwarding something. And then also make sure that if someone sends it to you, you correct it, right? Like, we just don't want it to continue. That's one. The second part of what the other brother was saying, we also have to encourage these fields, right? When your kid comes to you, I have children, and mashallah, many of you do. When your child comes to you and says, oh, I really want to work in PR, our first reaction is, maybe not. Right? But I'm just saying these are things that we are all working on as a community, and inshallah, as we sow the seeds, inshallah, we will see the fruits of us shifting gears to say, let's build when we're not in the middle of a crisis, inshallah, tools and resources that will allow us to do better.
And this is very important. I myself was spokesman for my community in Puerto Rico, and I had to train myself. And actually, a good source was CARE. So if you observe, for example, I don't want to mention names now, but certain governments, their officials, they repeat the same strategy. So we need to, when it comes to media, it has to be a strategy. So CARE and probably other organizations, go there, check the strategy, how to answer. Because it is important for us to give the right information and to say it correctly, right? So this is extremely important. So inshallah, with the training that these organizations offer is very important, but also we have to have strategies of communication. The other thing, we were talking, subhanAllah, the point that Brother Faisal brought. You know, when we Muslims love to give da'wah, you know, tell people about Allah, the Messenger, Islam, the pillars of Islam, the pillars of faith. But for the future, two fields are essential for da'wah, sophisticated da'wah: psychology and sociology. Without the understanding of the dynamics of the society, we will not be able to influence the society, which means we need to understand the system in order to influence the system. Allahu Akbar.
We're going to have a couple more questions.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair. Quickly, I'd like to understand the strategy the coalition is taking for 2024 election, given there was a bipartisan support, 410 to 10, I believe, when it comes to voting for pro-Israel resolution in Congress. Last time when we had elections, CIOGC endorsed all Democratic Party members. And what is our strategy? On the other side, we got Trump. And, you know, I'd like to hear that.
I'm just going to be really, really, really truthful. Our strategy is going to be informed, is going to continue to be informed with what continues to happen. The number one thing that I think collectively, all of us over here, including Imam, would say is you need to register to vote, okay? Registered and ready, that's our strategy. Register to vote. Make sure that your neighbor, your child, if they're over 18, your cousin, your aunt, everybody is registered to vote. Because guess what? The first thing that those that are running for office do, they check who's registered to vote. How many people are registered in their district? How many people are registered in their particular community that they're trying to influence? The second thing is we need to make sure our elected officials are held accountable. No more are we going to just allow people to come to our mosques, come to our community centers for a photo op. Alhamdulillah, that's wonderful. We are welcoming people. But I think we need to continue to hold them accountable to say, what is it that you have promised our community, and how do we make sure that we do that? And that's the only way that you can do that is through engagement, right? If the only time that you're speaking to your politician that you helped elect, who actually works for you and me, is when there's a problem, guess what? They're going to listen to the people who are going to continue to come to them. So we need to make sure that we are holding them accountable. The coalition has 100 meetings with legislators or elected officials a year. What does this look like? This looks like engaging with them, making sure that if we're talking to someone in your district, we're talking about what are the issues, who are the experts, what are the businesses that are here, what are the accomplishments of our community. So it's not just one-sided, we have an issue. So what I would say to you is we have to continue to engage with them. We need to stand firm on what our expectations of our politicians are. And then number one, we need to be registered and ready. I think the strategy is going to come out as the time progresses. In terms of what you mentioned of endorsing certain candidates, I think CIOGC, Coalition, CARE, we are all 501c3 organizations. We have ARMS that are 501c4 who conduct conversations. I can just speak to the Coalition Activate, which is the C4 arm that has a committee that comes together, has a questionnaire, that they have questions on there specific to issues at hand, and then the committee votes on how they should endorse, or who they should endorse, I'm sorry. And we're just not going to endorse someone because they're Muslim and they're running, right? We need to have the same standard. I don't care who it is. And your expectation should be that politicians should answer to us. And I'm sure CIOGC Action has a strategy. I think we've spoken about doing it collectively, and that is the goal. And one of the big things here is going to be exactly what we were talking about today. We have to stand firm on what our talking points are or what our requirements are. We have to be registered and ready, and we have to make sure that we hold them accountable.
This is a difficult but important question, and Sister Rima answered it as perfectly as I would have, hoped somebody can. I just want to add that quickly the nuance, that it's not a one-size-fits-all. I want the community to understand that. So for example, in one election we can say here is candidate A and here is candidate B. candidate A and candidate B. Candidate B is someone that is likely to win anyway. We're going to vote for this person even though we don't agree with their positions, because our strategy in this case is we can move this person by saying we've voted for you. In another situation, candidate A and candidate B, candidate A is likely to win also, but we think they're a lost cause. So we're going to vote for candidate B even though they're going to lose, and then use that vote to say, look, we could have voted for you, but we didn't. So, you know what I'm saying? And then vice versa. There are many different scenarios, and I think per race, the strategy would be set. And sometimes it might look like we're voting for someone that we disagree with, but the whole point is the long term. It's never going to be the short term. We're not many. We're not enough. Where we are enough, it'll be part of the strategy.
And it's also about earning our vote, right? We're telling them, oh, thank you. I could yell without a mic. We are telling them to earn our vote, and that's what it has to be. They have to earn our vote, and then we have to make sure that we are holding them accountable.
Let me just add one quick comment. So Islamically speaking, what Brother Ahmed and Sister Rima were talking about is that when you do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, which is enjoying good and try to forbid evil, you can do it by bringing something good. But also another way to do it is to lessen the evil. So if you have an evil of a 90% and then you bring it to 45, you have done something good. And this is Islamic.
So based on the Illinois Muslims report, last time we checked, and this is a report that was done in 2021, I'm sure your community heard about it, as did many other community organizations, all participated. I think it was 76% of the Muslim community in Illinois at that moment said that they were registered to vote. I think those numbers, and 23% said they intended to be registered to vote. If you remember, or if you've seen, Engage did a million Muslim vote. So there's been a lot of different numbers out there, but again, we have to keep pushing this idea of we need to make sure everyone is registered and ready. And as the election comes up, maybe we'll just put Free Palestine. I'm sure you've seen some of those conversations about just do a write-in vote or vote for your cousin.
One more here, one more here. It's okay? All right.
Assalamu alaikum. So my question is, lately I've been seeing a lot, so I'm seeing a lot of people speaking out, but I'm also seeing some people being fearful of speaking out or being kind of maybe limiting themselves. So where do we draw the line between what's okay to say and what's not okay to say? Like you were just saying, Brother Ahmed, in a lot of instances, we don't, pick at everything. So, and I've seen in the past, now that I'm a little bit older, us as Muslims, we let a lot of things go. Like every white guy and his mother thinks they know what jihad means. And now it's like a taboo, oh, you can't say jihad. Even though, we could have fought for that and it has a perfectly good meaning and in a human sense of, jihad means struggle. So where do we draw the line between this, this organization or this group is, known as a bad group or a terrorist group? Where do I draw the line between I'm supporting something that I think is right because it's humane versus I'm going to be conceived as coming off as terrorists?
Okay, so it's funny you mentioned jihad specifically, because one of the projects we had a few years back, some might remember, it was called My Jihad campaign. There was billboards all over the city on buses, actual buses in downtown Chicago, that led them to a website where we got to define what jihad means for us. A lot of media was created, probably in the millions of dollars as a result of that campaign. Inshallah, we can bring campaigns like this back. But to your point, the line is drawn, first of all, I think our principles and our values, again, as I said in my little talk, should be where the line is drawn. And I think if we understand our principles and our values, we won't wait for the law or for public opinion or for what's right and wrong in terms of being politically correct to define that, because our principles and values are a much higher bar than any of that stuff. Anything that is beneficial to humans, we stand for. Anything that is harmful, we stand against. The common good. We're not a tribe in that sense. We're not a club in that sense. We're not a team with team colors. We stand for humanity. And our standing for justice, our standing for human rights and dignity is based on being human, not on being Muslim, by the way. In other words, if you're non-Muslim, we stand for the same things for you. If you're of a different religion, etc. So I think that needs to come out, and we should never become team members, tribal in the sense of how we talk about it. Now, if people who are Muslim are being deprived of these things, we absolutely have every right to speak for them. That's what's happening right now. It isn't because they're Muslims, because they're human. But the last point on that is where the line can be drawn additionally is the law. So there are groups that are considered terrorist organizations by law. And it doesn't matter what anyone thinks, they would be putting themselves in legal jeopardy if they don't understand that. But again, personally, and this is my belief, and people can fight me over it, I really, truly, and honestly believe that the targeting of civilians is haram, is wrong. So I'm not waiting for the law to tell me that. But short of that, when it happens the other way, and this is what we speak for, we need to be able to say, well, here are my standards. They're high bars. How come you can't meet those standards? And then get into the oppositional conversation rather than the defensive one, right? But you can only do that if you stand on solid grounds.
But wouldn't you agree, Brother Ahmed, that we have to be strategic about these, right? Like, please, as young people, as you have young people in your lives, be strategic. Do not put out rhetoric that you're hearing from here and there. You are going to, it's a fuzzy line sometimes what people can take and misconstrue as whatever, right? So please be strategic about that. But again, protect yourself. But then that's why it's really important to have these talking points. When everyone who spoke here, anytime we said ceasefire, it was for civilians. It wasn't a particular civilian. We talked about killing of any human life is wrong. And that's not to say that one life is more precious than the other, but you're seeing in reality what is actually happening. And it is a one-sided conflict. So I would just advise that as you're talking to youth, as you're talking to folks in your community, please be aware that there are forces out there that are looking to find issue with what you might be putting out. So it's not just a passive action, right? There's active action against statements, against anything that you might be putting out.
And if all else fails, find a leader you trust and echo their public statements. All right? If all else fails and one is still afraid of whether they're going to make a mistake, or the simple rule is be rational, be reasonable, be morally principled. Okay? If that's still confusing for some people, do not be afraid, short of that. Then just echo certain talking points. I sometimes do that. I sometimes look at certain people who are experts on topics more than me, and I'll be like, oh, that's good. I'm going to echo and amplify that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I just wanted to share my humble experience with you. It might help you. But before that, my humble opinion that we should stick to international law and universal human rights. That's the baseline. Yeah. And we have, mashallah, a lot of things. So in Puerto Rico, I used to represent my community. And of course, the first question, would you condemn, So I would flip the question, and I start saying, yeah, of course, I condemn the killing of the Palestinian people who, are suffering and like that, right? So I start talking about the suffering of the victim, right? But my humble suggestion is that if you are not sure which way to go, especially like Brother Ahmed stressed and Sister Rima, we have to put it in the context of the country that we live in, okay? And that's how Rasulullah ﷺ has done it. Rasulullah ﷺ had to reject some Muslims who migrated from Mecca to Medina under the Treaty of Al-Hudaybiyah. He had to deal with that, right? So he had to fulfill that. So we need to deal with that, and I think the best strategy is stick to international law and universal human rights, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We need to keep in mind, we are very, very few in numbers in this country. Hardly 0.02%. It's a huge country, and we have perhaps only two places where we can actually say we have a political clout. There's probably Michigan area, Dearborn area, where the Muslim Arabs live, I think. And then we have an area in Minnesota. What we need to do is work on the ground level, grassroots level. I mean, we can do whatever we can, obviously, as a civic duty, as a civic part of the society, we can call our representatives, senators, whoever. What we need to do, I believe, is work on the grassroots level and get the neighbors, all the other minorities, get their help. We need to spread our word. We need to give them the exposure of the issues in the world, especially the Muslim world, obviously. That's what we are concerned about mostly. And hopefully we can get their opinions on our side and have them call our representatives as well and keep those issues of ours in their mind when they're voting in the general elections. Thank you.
So my question is about, the election is supposed to be a democratic process. But what we know is that most of these candidates are bought by Zionists by paying them, giving them millions of dollars. And our money goes into building mosques and schools and, which is all great. But how do we really tackle this problem? Because this is a big problem. And, these candidates, they love money, and although mashallah, our community has money, but we don't like to give to them. I don't know. What do you think about that?
So the way the system exists, the rules are the same for everyone, supposedly. So if someone can give money, the other can give money, so on and so forth. So if someone's giving more money than someone else, then it's the group that isn't giving money who has the problem. There are flaws in the system. It's not rigged, but it is deeply flawed. And one of the flaws is that it resembles in many instances, and this is now me talking purely as an American with critique of my own country and its systems, as an oligarchy rather than as a democracy, meaning that it allows for certain people of any background, of any political sway, right? This isn't double speak, who have power of money, of relationships, of influence in society, to create PACs that have undue, disproportionate influence on the process than the average American citizen. And you see that even in the Electoral College. I mean, again, it sounds like a joke, but we had a presidential candidate that won the majority popular vote by 2 million, who still lost the election. It's almost laughable. So there are flaws in the system, but we got to work with what we have and try to reform the flaws. We can do both at once. In terms of reforming the flaws, we need to get our voices out as Americans, but you won't do it unless you claim it. Again, the first step is to believe it in your heart. This is your land, this is your country, you have every right to critique and reform. And then, in terms of playing the game the way the rules are right now, is to get more engaged in numbers. By the way, the brother mentioned that we're small in number, we are, but we're equal to the Jewish community number, if I'm not mistaken. It's a question more of where we put our time and energy and influence. And perhaps, as you mentioned, Imam, that in times of crisis we grow, and maybe like 9/11, we actually had a huge, growth spurt at that time. Before that, we were still debating respectfully whether music is haram or halal, whether voting is haram or halal. That was the majority conversation at the conventions. Came 9/11, we woke up a little bit, started to build our organizations, started to become civically engaged, have relationships, et cetera. Then we kind of went to relative lull, relative sleep again, once the immediate danger was off our backs after Trump. And now we're getting back into things. So inshallah, we maintain that energy in the off season. I keep saying that is my theme tonight, and we will get there.
Just to add to that, there's strategy involved here as well, right? If you give $100 and everyone else here gives $100, it's great. You're giving $100. If we bundle our money together and we say, hey, guess what? we have $10,000 to give. Here's the meet with us, understand our issues, etc. Of course, you need a PAC for that. There's a whole bunch of other procedures that are involved or processes that are involved to ensure that it's being done within the process or within the larger picture. But that's what it is. It's strategic. And that is something that we've been talking about here is our community lacks. Or tries, but again, it's putting your baggage aside, our egos aside, our whatever issues that we've had aside to say, we are all going to work together towards this one thing. On the other opportunity here is, again, I'm putting on my C4 hijab and saying it from my C4 self, is that we have to be strategic on who's running, right? Just because you see an open seat, absolutely, we encourage everyone, be a leader, run. You should run. This is how we get our messaging out there. This is how we show our values. But let's be strategic about who we're running against, right? Like, let's put our money, our candidates, our training, our efforts, our strategy on a winnable race. Now, that doesn't mean that we should not be running, because mashallah, compare how many people that you know, that you see the Muslim names today than you did maybe 5 years ago. You know, board seats as well, school boards, park districts, etc. These are all important elections, and that's how we're going to learn. So it's the strategy, it's putting our heads together and thinking about it in a different way than we have been used to thinking about it.
Assalamu alaikum. ICW is the only mosque in Wheaton, and ICW has arranged a lot of programs all the time in different topics. My suggestion is that time and time we have to explain non-Muslim who we are. So I just request that on the time of Thanksgiving or anything, can we some letters to non-Muslim area in this area so that they can come and enjoy this feast. And also we have to thankful that we have migrated from India to Pakistan to here. So dual purpose. I really appreciate the management and everybody who always have good programs here. Thank you very much.
Can I just say something really important about this? Remember we mentioned that we're a small number, et cetera, and that we can never really instigate change unless we coalesce and influence and be influenced by other communities together, right, in a coalition. So that, to your point, that's very important. But I'm going to say this, and I hate to say it, but I have to say it. If you think this is a crisis moment, God forbid it takes one person who's Muslim to lose it and commit something unbecoming for you to see what a real crisis is going to look like. I mean, that keeps me up at night. Alhamdulillah, we have a restrained community. And if one person were to flip, I mean, others from other communities have flipped many times, including the one who killed Wadia. But sadly, and this is just a fact, no one's questioning that person's religion. There's not been one conversation about the fact that that guy was white. Not one conversation about the fact that this guy was Catholic. But should a Muslim flip and do something, God forbid, this community is going to get it, it's going to see it. And so building these relationships are important for those moments. For those moments when mosques and parking lots and homes become potential targets, it's important to build these relationships so that others stand with you, know who you are, and are not brainwashed and radicalized, because at the moment that happens, the media and the political statements are going to take us to another level. God forbid.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, I have first comment about what we have, the elections and stuff. We know that the policy of this country usually goes with Israel, regardless of who is the political parties. But what I see in here, like how is the APAC and the supporting super PACs, they just go side on side with Republican and Democrat, and they work hard on both sides. And whoever wins, they say, we make you win, and we give you this one. And they do not stand against the Muslims or whoever supported that Republican against the Democrat and say, next time we're not going to support your issues. We prefer that if these organizations can start to build super PACs, and instead of me donating to this Republican guy or this Democratic guy, we give all this money to a few super PACs, and these super PACs can show the support, and if they win, they say this is our win. But this is a comment, but my question is, I'm not sure who can remember this story before. I know some of you are still young to that one, but if you remember one Israeli families or Jewish family a few years back for the death of their son in Palestine, they sue multiple non-for-profit organization, and they got lucky by just claiming something they were supporting Hamas instead of supporting the Palestinian people. And they got the chance to provide some kind of documentation for supporting their claims, and they find a judge to approve their case. And the result was to close and seize all assets for these non-for-profit organizations and even jail their directors. From what I see now, we know the genocide now going on in Palestine, and the whole world against and see that one, this is a genocide. Can't our organization like CARE or some other legal firm sue these corporations? Maybe you will not win the first time. Sue again and again and again. Finally, you might get a judge who will side with you. And then these corporations and even government will be sued, and they will be charged, and they will start to hesitate. How I'm gonna do it? Is there like a merit on these things? Do you think this is something can be achieved with our legal fund, CARE, stuff like this? I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Yeah, you're talking about the Boehm family. I do remember that. Yes, I mean, there's a precedent there. We're always looking into potential, what we call impact litigation. And it's a question of resources and capacity and priority. And at the moment, we don't have the excesses that others have in terms of being able to pursue such long-term, very expensive type of litigation, especially when you have members of the community who are immediately facing direct impact in their lives and need legal representation. If you have a couple of attorneys in a law firm or 3 or 4, you're going to prioritize things. You're not in the space to be able to have luxury type of lawsuits. But down the line, absolutely, I think the more we build our capacity and our litigation strategies, and we're talking about suing universities, we've sued police departments, we can sue the president. You know, these things are definitely not off the table, but you got to work towards it.
Yeah, no, But I think what Brother Ahmed is saying, and I think one other point I want to make sure that it's very clear. We've talked about strategy. We talked about what else can we do as organizations, as communities. Every one of those things, every strategy, every moment, every action, every grassroots opportunity requires money, requires staff, requires someone to help Ahmed when he's working like 18-hour days, right? Requires staff for the coalition to actually train volunteers, do the training. So my request, my humble request would be, when it is time to give to organizations that are doing the work, right? Like, please think about that. We absolutely need to give to our masajid, 100%. We need to be supporting the orphans. We need to make sure that there's clean drinking water, 100%. But the expectation that we're going to change the community effort here without actually investing in the resources is unrealistic. So when we come to the mosque and we say, hey, can you like help us fund something? There is a hesitation. It's like, oh, it's okay. But please do consider that, because every mashallah, wonderful idea that came out of our conversation today requires resources, and resources require funding. And let me tell you, there are no corporations that are funding this work. There are no foundations that are funding this work. It has to come from the community.
Thank you very much. And I want to assure that's true because all masajid needs fundraising and they need money to do these activities and so forth. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I want to thank the wonderful panel, Sister Rima, Brother Ahmed, and Sheikh Zaid. And let's not forget the bone of this event, our volunteers. All of them, the volunteer team, did a great job tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you and good night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.